They finally hit the income they used to dream about. The house is nicer, the cars are newer. And somehow, by the end of most months, there's almost nothing left over. By the end, you'll see exactly where a big income like this actually goes, and the one household rule that turns the next raise into real breathing room instead of a bigger bill. When you earn this much and still feel squeezed, it's easy to assume you're just bad with money. That story is common. It's usually missing the real mechanism behind it. The dashboard looks fine on paper. Every bill gets paid, the income line looks strong, and the savings goal just sits there, unmoved month after month, without ever quite failing. The confusing part is that nothing looks broken. There's no single bad decision to point to, just a slow shift where a bigger income quietly financed a bigger set of obligations, instead of more room to breathe. A national survey of thousands of U.S. consumers found that 36% of people earning $250,000 or more describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck today. That's more than a third of households at this income level. A separate survey found that 62% of people earning over $300,000 a year still carry a revolving credit card balance most months. High income and financial pressure are clearly not opposites here. Here's the reframe. The raise usually isn't wasted on luxury or carelessness. It gets assigned to bigger fixed costs the moment it arrives, before it ever becomes a real, conscious choice. Researchers and economists have started calling this the vibecession, a gap between what a strong income should feel like and what it actually feels like, once fixed costs catch up to it. It happens quietly because each individual decision looks reasonable. A slightly bigger mortgage, a better school zone, a newer, safer car. None of them feel reckless in the moment. This income sits in roughly the top 5% of household earnings nationally, which makes the squeeze feel almost embarrassing to admit. That embarrassment is exactly why the pattern stays hidden. At this income, admitting the squeeze can feel like complaining from a position nobody will sympathize with. So most households just keep the tension private, which makes it even easier to assume it's only happening to them. Without an honest conversation, nothing forces the pattern to change. The mortgage stays sized to the maximum, the second car stays financed, and the raise keeps disappearing the same way it did last time. The obvious pushback isn't this just about spending less? Not quite. The trap is that most of this money is already spoken for before a single discretionary dollar gets spent. At this income, most households fall into one of three patterns. None of them are reckless people. Each one shapes where the money actually goes, and each one feels completely reasonable while it's happening. The upgrader household moves the moment income rises, bigger house, better school zone, more space. It feels like arriving, it feels earned. The cost is a mortgage sized to exactly what the bank approved, not what actually feels comfortable month to month. The hurdle is that one income dip turns comfortable into stretched almost overnight. The matcher household keeps pace with the people around them at the same income, 2 newer cars, memberships, the extras that feel normal for this bracket. The cost is 2 car payments plus revolving card balances that never fully clear. The hurdle is that keeping pace quietly becomes the budget's real priority, ahead of saving. The freezer household earns the same $250,000, but deliberately kept their lifestyle where it was a few years ago. It's unglamorous. It rarely looks impressive from the outside. The cost is missing out on some of the upgrades their income could technically support. The hurdle is that this only works with a deliberate system. It rarely happens by accident. Most households aren't purely one pattern. A family might upgrade the house, match on one car, and still automate a small transfer. The mix is what decides whether the raise ever becomes real breathing room. Part of what keeps the matcher pattern alive is social comparison at the same income level. When everyone around you upgrades together, staying still can feel like falling behind, even when it isn't. Here's the twist worth sitting with. The trap usually isn't a flashy purchase. It's 3 ordinary fixed costs: housing, childcare, and transport, quietly absorbing the raise before spending even begins. So pause on this. Did your last raise actually change your monthly breathing room, or did it just raise the ceiling of what you're now obligated to pay? If you're renting at this income, the trap looks different but similar. A nicer neighborhood, lease renewal can absorb a raise just as completely as a bigger mortgage does. For a single earner carrying this income alone, fixed costs like childcare and housing eat a larger share of every dollar, since there's no second income to spread the same pressure across. For dual-income households, the trap can hide differently. Each partner assumes the other's paycheck is covering savings, when in practice both incomes are already claimed by separate fixed costs. Without childcare costs, the same pressure often shows up through housing and travel instead. The specific line item changes, but the pattern of the raise disappearing into it stays the same. This isn't only a $250,000 story. Research on household budgets shows the same squeeze reaching down to households earning $100,000 to $200,000, wherever local housing costs have grown faster than pay. Where you live changes the math too. In a high-cost region, this same income can feel noticeably tighter than it would somewhere with lower housing and childcare costs. The mechanism travels, even if the numbers shift. Now the honest part, this isn't a story about frivolous spending. It's about what happens when nearly all of a strong income gets claimed before any of it becomes a choice. At this income, paycheck to paycheck rarely means missing a meal. It usually means making no real progress toward retirement, a home upgrade, or any long-term goal, even while every bill gets paid. That's what makes the 62% credit card figure so revealing. Even households that look financially comfortable are quietly carrying a balance that never fully clears, a sign the math is tighter than it appears. Here's the sober number to sit with. If most of a raise gets absorbed by bigger fixed obligations, a household's actual savings rate can stay flat or even shrink while their income keeps climbing. The mechanism scales down too. A household earning less runs the same math on a smaller budget. Every raise gets claimed by rent, groceries, or childcare before it becomes a choice, just with tighter numbers. None of this means the upgrades were mistakes. It means most households never actually decide to skip saving. The raise just gets spoken for before that decision has a chance to happen. So here's the low-risk fix. You don't need to earn less or move to a smaller house overnight. You need one rule that protects the next raise before your lifestyle claims it. Try the half rule. The next time your income rises, automatically send half of the increase straight into savings or investing before it ever reaches your everyday account. Half, not all, matters here. The other half is still yours to enjoy, a nicer dinner out, a bit more breathing room month to month. This isn't about denying the raise ever happened. Before any new commitment, audit the 3 costs that do the most quiet damage: housing, childcare or school fees, and transport. Check whether each one grew faster than your income actually did. Before signing anything bigger, a mortgage, a lease, a new car, ask one honest question out loud. Does this commitment still work if your income dropped by 10% next year, unexpectedly? A lot of these upgrades aren't really about affordability. They're about identity, what feels appropriate for this income. It's worth noticing that difference before signing a 30-year commitment to it. None of this means never upgrading. It means giving the decision a waiting period, so the choice comes from the household's plan instead of from the raise landing in the account that week. The half rule only works if it's automatic. A transfer that depends on remembering or feeling motivated tends to quietly stop within a few months, the same way most good intentions do. The freezer household from earlier isn't more disciplined by nature, and they aren't sacrificing more than anyone else. They just built one rule around each raise early, before their lifestyle had the chance to claim it first. Income tells you what's possible. Your savings rate tells you what's actually happening right now, this month, in your real household. That's the number worth checking every few months, regardless of what your pay stub says. A bigger income was never guaranteed to feel like more room. Whether it does depends on one decision: what happens to each raise in the moment before your lifestyle notices it arrived. None of this makes anyone reckless for missing it earlier. Nobody sits down and deliberately decides to let a raise disappear. That is fixable the moment you catch it, starting right now with the very next one. You don't have to choose between enjoying this income and building real security from it. You just need one rule that protects part of every raise before the rest of life claims it, permanently, quietly, every single time. Subscribe to this channel for more clear, practical money steps like this one, built for households at any income trying to turn a paycheck into real breathing room.